one of the trends of the last, say, decade or two has been the growing number of Mexicans in New York. Mexicans were really almost invisible in 1990 in New York in the immigrant population. Their numbers have really increased. They are now number 3, or they're tied for number 3 in terms of looking at the immigrant groups with the most numbers in New York. As a result of the continued number of Latino immigrants coming to New York, we've seen a change in New York's Latino population, a continuing decline in the proportion of Puerto Ricans in the Latino population, and a growing proportion of Dominicans, Mexicans, Colombians, and Ecuadorians, who are the largest Latino groups. New York will continue to welcome Asian immigrants and new groups. One of the new groups that's been coming in the last 10 years or so in large number are Bangladeshis. New York's black population will continue to be Caribbeanized and also increasingly Africanized. We're likely to see in the next decade a growing political influence of immigrants. This is already happening. A larger proportion of the electorate are foreign-born and children of immigrants. But I think one of the things we'll see is they'll be electing more of their co-ethnics to office, and we may even have a mayor in the not-too-distant future whose origins are in one of the new immigrant groups. The fact that New York has a very high proportion of a number of immigrants, that most New Yorkers have a close immigrant connection, that the population is extraordinarily diverse, that there's not an overwhelming, undocumented population. All of these factors make New York a relatively friendly place for immigrants. And in New York City, it is not good politics to be anti-immigrant. You would never see a bill like the one in Arizona or now Alabama passing in New York City. You look back 100 years ago to Jews and Italians who were coming to New York. They were seen as weird and exotic, ruining, America. Their customs were seen as strange. Their foods were seen as unusual, to put it nicely. People said, oh my gosh, the Italians have tomato sauce, and bringing broccoli, how awful. But their foods, pizzas in every corner. Everybody is eating bagels. Actually, if you think of it, today's immigrants are changing the food of New York even more quickly. I think this is a process that's been happening in New York ever since, the Dutch came, hundreds of years ago. So I think we'll see this process of immigrants adding their cultures to New York at the same time as they become New Yorkers, root for the Yankees or the Mets, and think of themselves as New Yorkers, which we know from studies of the second generation in New York, and of course from my students at Hunter College. They do feel themselves as New Yorkers, and many of them actually feel they couldn't live anywhere else, that this is their home.